All right, I call out the Town of Belgrade Planning Board meeting of August 1st, 2024. It's exactly 6 o'clock. And the first order on the agenda is a call to order and roll call. So, tonight we have a full board. That's a good thing. This haven't not happened probably in 2-3 months. So, with us, we have tonight, we have Penny Morale, and we have Richard Baker, and we have Nick Sakaro, and we have Mr. Peter Surgeon, and we have Mr. George Seal, we have Mr. Greg Alexander, and Mr. Hans Rasmussen, and myself, Sarah Langet. That said, we also ask people in the audience to introduce themselves for the benefit of the minutes.
Bill Hudson.
So tonight we have Mr. Bill Hudson in the audience. With that, we're going to proceed to new business. And we have the application from Mr. Bill Hudson for David Mazur. The location is 313 Forster Point Road. And is map 34, lot 4. And the purpose of the application is a shoreland zone application to rebuild a 8x10 shed. And with that introduction, I think I will like Mr. Hudson to maybe say a few words, if you want to say a few words.
Sure. Hans has been working with the owner. And they've negotiated a deal to do some kind of relocation of the shed.
Okay,
And I'm here to say, great, sounds good. We just want to know where we can put it.
okay,
And in the process of that, if at the time comes, if Hans can come over to the property with me and specifically say, this is where we want the shed, I'm all for it, and we'll put it right there.
all right,
That's my say.
all right, perfect. So, thank you. So that said, just so for the audience, this application one point came to the board and it was way back in March, wasn't it?
April
April,
18th.
all right. So, at that point, it was my recollection of it, and you guys might help me out if I'm not correct. The problem was that there was no record of the initial installation of the shed. This was some plus 30 years ago. And so for that reason, it was deemed that it was not permitted, or it was, at least we couldn't trace a permit for it. So for that very reason, then we couldn't restate it in the place where it was, or let it be rebuilt there. So the application as it was would have been treated as a brand new application. And it will require, according to the ordinance now, will require the location of the shed in the 100-foot mark beyond that, right? So another interesting peculiarity of this application is that is in the slope district. So there are different things to look at. And so that said, we're now in a position of reconsidering, and we're basically talking about a brand new application. And there are some suggestions on where it can be located. And I'll look forward to open discussion for the board and see what other members do think about the new proposed location for the shed. And I'm glad to hear, very excited to hear from Mr. Hudson that they're open to hear other suggestions if that would be needed from the board to see where we can set this shed up so it'll be of your purpose and meet the ordinance as it is.
You're right. Convenient for the owners
Yes,
who are in their eighties,
yeah,
cannot walk up the slope zone.
yeah.
So, but we're open to suggestions and whatever you think it should be.
We,
So how far back is it? So
It's, yeah,
what's that?
I think it's like 50 feet or whatever it was on there.
Well, that's the original 42,
Right.
or two,
and then you have a move back and off to the side.
And I believe that's where we
Let's say
discussed them putting it
122
last
feet.
time. Wasn't it?
One of the things, you were at the, yeah, you and George, Sarah, were not at the second meeting we had on this thing, and there was discussion of it has to, being treated as a new structure, it has to be set back 100 feet. Or there was discussion that if the structure doesn't already meet the allowed
Max square footage.
maximum square footage, that it could be attached to the structure as long as the shed doesn't exceed that maximum square foot.
Like tiny.
And that's where we left off. It's kind of told Bill that that's an option. But, and then we tabled it. So, well, I guess I have thinking that structure, we can't give a planning board can't give a variance to allow something less than 100 feet. We can allow if it meets the expansion limitation or doesn't exceed it. It could be attached to the existing structure legally.
okay,
What I would say, it has to be attached to the principal structure. Or put it this way. I think what I saw was, it looked like it was gonna be next to a stone patio.
Hmm.
And my feeling is that that stone patio being an accessory structure. You can't, put it this way, you can't just call that part of the principal structure. But at the same time. Now, I'm sitting here, this is a new structure, we have to treat it as a new structure.
it is,
And so. In the end. It either has to meet the setback,
Or be in addition to the
Or addition.
primary structure.
yeah.
Upon recalculation of the building. With the overhang drip line.
Yeah.
There's not enough square footage in the structure to add to the structure.
Not enough square footage, there's too much square footage to allow for this, is that what?
There's not enough to put the shed onto the building. If you get the type figures of the building, plus the overhang of the building.
Yeah.
There's just not enough to put it on there, so it has to be put on the. Put somewhere that could be accessible. That they've been using this thing for 30+ years, close to the lake.
I don't.
Obviously, it's a new structure,
Mhm.
but I think that we need to consider the owners. And what they're, they just want a shed.
Yeah, but that's the point I think I originally was trying to make. I don't think this board can say we're gonna consider the owner and we're gonna let you have it at 60 feet back or 50 feet. That would be something that only the Board of Appeals could grant. But not the planning board. We have to treat it as new structure and we can only allow the structure to be set back 100 foot.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in accordance to the, I mean, I missed the meeting, as you noted, Richard, of 4/18/24, but, you guys obviously discussed the attorney's opinion, and it was pretty clear that attorneys, advised us that we have to treat this as a new structure.
Yeah,
That
that
has
was
to be
pretty
done
clear at
foot
that meeting
setback.
as well, yeah.
Yeah, we had thought that the current structure, the house didn't meet the maximum square footage. So
Yeah.
we were saying if you put some stringers and you attach it to that structure, I think we were talking about adding it to the deck, there's like a current deck there. And we were like, if you tied into that deck, and it didn't go over the max, that would work, but.
do we need to go to the appeals board to make this happen?
It's my opinion that it does, put it this way, I don't think we can approve it, so the only other alternative would be to approach, that's if you don't approve of the application.
A clarification, the application that's before us today, which differs from your original, has, the, new location designated on the site plan, but I got the impression is you're not married to that location, is that what you said in your introductory comments, or?
Well, it's all, is convenient for the owners, that's what my deal is.
Okay, so this would be your ideal, and
No.
the owners. ideal.
Whatever Hans and the owners, there was several meetings that they had together. And they were discussing about where it should go, and I was out of those meetings, I didn't know anything about it, the only reason why I'm here is because the owner is in
Oh,
someplace
okay.
else right now. They asked me to be here on his behalf.
Well, before I ask Hans, to kind of summarize where those discussions led, cause what's on the site plan here and designated as new location and adjoining or abutting the patio, the stone patio is still well within 100 feet of the normal high water line. It's, probably 80 feet. The back edge of it's like 80 feet, assuming the scale hasn't changed, so that each square is 20 by 20.
Right, exactly. The issue with that land is it comes up, then it plateaus off where the patio is. Then there was an old road there at one time, and then it slopes
There
off.
was a what?
There was an old road there at one time,
Okay.
but that's done. So where it goes back up the hill, it's gonna be very difficult to put structure to have the owners walk up 100 feet up that hill. I mean, they're elderly and they just want some convenience and they want, to understand, they want you to understand that they don't wanna do anything bad for the lake. And I understand the rules are the rules, but they've been living there for 40-something years. And it's kind of like, we just tell them, no, you can't have this thing, you gotta walk up the hill.
I got a question, for the board here. I don't wanna address the applicant at this point. Alright, I wanna back up here. The shed was built, the original shed was built when? We know,
30+ years ago,
pardon?
30+ years ago.
Okay, so that brings it back to what date, roughly,
The image shows it there in 1994.
1994?
It was there as a woodshed.
In 1994?
Yep.
Okay. So. And there's no paperwork supporting, it, right?
That's right.
Okay, why would that happen? I mean, what,
Someone built a woodshed.
okay,
That's pretty common.
pardon,
Common, not right?
was it? Okay,
Yes.
okay. I'm just trying to get a handle on this. And because there's grandfather involved.
Yeah, if it was like in the 80s, well, it would have been there
Yeah.
since 80.
And the town lawyers already been through it and advised us, even though
For this
I
particular,
would, I would think that direction, but where we've already been advised from the town lawyer, saying we have to treat it as a new structure.
so the town lawyer reviewed it for this particular piece of property.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Hans, can we go back to you? So Mr. Hudson mentioned that there was discussions between you and the landowners that he wasn't present at. Could you just summarize those for us and whatever conclusions you reached?
Well, in this photo with the red box, he came in, I think he was proposing that it be up here in a cleared area with some tree had fallen.
Do you have those photos, that photo?
Yeah, probably not, there's something. There's another,
So we don't have the red spot, we don't have the red spot.
This one?
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
the page before that.
Is it in this packet?
That's the old one, isn't the new one.
So in basically looking at his location proposal. By putting it back 10 feet back, that means they're gonna trump on this vegetation, create another path. Basically disturb more soil. So it made sense, if you wanted to have it over there, then it'd be at the edge of the patio. This is just practicality,
Mhm.
but going back to Richard, that would be granting a variance to the state rule. So. The only other way to keep it close, right at 100 feet, was to be located next to their steps. Which they don't wanna climb the steps to get to it. And that would also mean possibly losing some vegetation, or I don't recall what was next to the steps, if we did it.
Well, I think the pitch there is probably 6 pitch or more. So by the time you got to the front, it's on a slant, that's all.
And the steps you're referring to on the site drawings, labeled walkway access?
Yes.
You have a hard time walking up the step. So,
Yeah, no, understood.
maybe something, I'm listening.
Don't misunderstand, it's not like we're unsympathetic, it's a question of,
I understand.
what authority we have.
How big's the patio? That's already impervious, right? So could they put it on top of the patio?
Well, I was just gonna say the same, I misspoke when I earlier said it had to be attached to the principal structure. If somebody had a house that was 40 by 40, so it only had let's say the house was 20 by 20. So we've got 400 square feet. If they had a shed out back within the 100-foot area that was 10 by 10, that has 500 square foot. They still have 500 square foot if they were within 100 feet of the water, but more than 75. They'd have 100 square foot, 500 square foot remaining. They could expand that shed rather than expand the house, as long as it conforms to the square footage.
It's the
limitation.
cumulative total.
So I was just about to say almost the exact thing as Craig. That they could put it on top of the patio or remove part of the patio. And have it be an expansion. Not expansion, replacement of patio that's been removed. Still at the same square footage.
Right.
You got rid of some, but you're putting that there. That is an alternative.
This space there?
Well, the patio wasn't included in the square footage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't look like it, cause
Because when this house was built. They went round and round. All the terracing is infiltration, it's drainage, and it was deemed not to be counted as square footage. In the overall footprint of the house, so the patio. It's terracing, they've got. Many layers of like flower boxes and terracing that's built-in drainage, it's engineered.
yeah, but aren't we talking two different things? We're not talking about the area of unvegetated surface, we're talking about the square footage of structure.
That's allowed within the
Yeah,
distance.
and the patio doesn't count towards that, or does it?
Oh, it does if it's a pretty much impervious kind of,
Like a deck,
pardon me.
Like
a deck would be
a
included,
deck would be included,
the
right?
patio as well, but they have the stone underneath it.
So,
The way
Mr.
the
Hudson, you
law-
said earlier that, the square footage of the camp, I don't know that you meant patio as well, but just the camp
Just the camp,
was more than what the 887 square feet that's on the application,
plus the drip edge, which
plus the drip edge.
This is.
I didn't consider the drip edge.
Because on the original application, it was 1,000 square feet.
Right,
Is the 1,000 square feet closer to,
it's close to the, so it's. There was a small deck. That was actually a walkway that wasn't included, and then the drip line was not included in the first calculation.
So so the 887 square feet is not correct.
887 plus another 10, plus the drip line for all the way around the house. Which it's gonna bring it up to 1,000 or more.
So what's the limit?
1,000.
It is 1,000, and so we're between, or up to 75 feet back in the lake.
I'm sorry, I didn't get-
75 feet back into the lake, right? Where this
Yes,
building
it's
is,
within the 75.
pardon?
It's within the 75.
Okay, all right. So it's 1,000 feet, okay, right. Thank you. I want to get that clear. Okay, good, thank you. I get a question, if he goes to the, I'm curious, if he goes to the, field board for variance, what are the chances of getting, how are they trying to treat that? Anyone put a thought on that?
I have no idea.
You approve a hardship, and it would be pretty hard to approve a hardship.
Yeah,
An economic hardship, yeah.
So it wouldn't be an interpretation of the, law at all, it'd be a hardship one, and you gotta meet three criteria. And that'd be hard to meet.
That, with that, rework existing, oh, that's the existing driveway that heads. Left side of it, right,
Right,
west side of it, that's the existing driveway,
that was there in the 30s.
and they use that,
No,
they don't.
no,
But,
they would like to.
but it's
not
flat,
allowed.
but it's flat right there,
It is flat, right?
because it looks to me that, the water line. Starts to head south, and you start to gain feet footage. If you look,
Yes,
it goes from 42 feet to 100 feet on this print.
but when it gets past, I think 60 or so, it starts going uphill in a good clip.
Yeah, because if they moved it down that road, you might be able to get beyond 75 feet.
Yeah, that's true. If 75 feet is the line,
Now it'll be 100 feet.
Then it would be 100 feet.
Right, that's a good point,
That's
because of the way the shoreline,
Because the shoreline goes down.
Goes
So if you
down.
find right where 75 feet is from that
Yeah.
shoreline down that flat road, you could put a shed there and it wouldn't be too bad of a walk for them. They'd be kind of just walking parallel and getting their stuff and
yep,
then
that
back
could
down.
definitely be a good deal because it does go,
Right,
you know,
so I would just find the 75 feet on that road.
100 feet.
100.
correct. So it's, the 100
And you're not walking up hills, you're just kind of walking over, getting your stuff and then,
But by the time it gets 100 feet, it's gonna be quite a ways away, but.
well, you'd only have to get to 75 feet.
I'll get this in front of it.
Yeah, they have to keep it 100 feet.
Oh, to 100.
Yes,
Well, if they're beyond 75, then is it, yeah.
because their square footage goes. Am I correct?
Well, after 75, it jumps up, right?
The allowable square footage goes up to 1,500.
Right.
After 75,
After
After
75.
75.
yeah,
Yeah,
so there you go.
So he could be in 1,500, right? So he, but
The basic rule is all new structures have to be behind 100 feet.
yeah.
all new
Yeah.
structures. But he's already in it. Where?
Yeah, because the main structure.
Oh, because, okay,
Because it's
I
open,
keep getting, I'm thinking that we grandfathered in, this other one was built illegally, basically. It was built illegally,
There's
Yeah,
no
right.
record of it.
it was done illegally,
yes,
okay. Alright, Okay,
So,
so. you
Be
talked
about
about
120
trucking,
feet up that driveway or so, if your site plan's, correct. Where the 100 foot,
It's close to accurate. I just blew up the plot plan.
yeah, so. Flat ground, but
That'd be
Not-
height.
not a short
Just
distance.
100.
Well, I'll tell you what. If that's the case, I think we can try to work it, but I'll just talk to the owner when he gets back. If you had the decision, that makes sense to go that way, because that's 100 feet.
Yeah, that's what I
well,
mean,
I think the way we would have to leave it is. That we couldn't make a decision on not having an application in front of us
Yeah.
with a site drawing showing that's where the location's gonna be.
Sure.
But you could revise your site drawing to indicate that and just submit that. I
Okay,
think, yeah, I mean, unless the other board members. think-
Yeah, no, I was just making a suggestion for the, like what you said, you'd have to reapply
Yeah.
and put that on.
Well, it's an excellent thought.
Modify.
You don't see any problems with that, do you?
okay, we do have an issue with it where it is now. Is what we did is we built the structure with a platform. And we started the frame. We found out that it was illegal, so we took the frame down, left the platform there. So now there's a grace period. Between now and we can figure out how to get it to where we need to get it. I just wanna make sure that we're cool with that.
The next meeting?
Yep.
2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when Mr. Mazza's gonna be back. Right after the Olympics, I don't know when that is.
No, we in a week from now. When does the extender stay there?
Oh, I think he'll be back. Hopefully. You like me.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that we have an agreement. A tentative agreement on what the board will possibly approve. And we're gonna have Mr. Hudson come back with a new set of drawings for that. And you seem to be embracing what we're suggesting.
I wanna make you happy and Mr. Mazza happy.
Well,
Okay, that's my goal.
we're trying to stick with the ordinance, that's what we're here for.
I'm all about it.
And certainly we also, as Mr. CEO expressed to you, it's not that we're not empathetic with the situation of the owners. We're all gonna end up in that same road at one point or another, is that we have certain limit in our authority. So I hope you understand that.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that said, I guess I'm gonna entertain a motion to table the application.
I'll make a motion to table the application, subsequent, until we get an amendment.
All right, and we'll have a second to that,
Second.
second, so we're gonna vote now, so Mr. Sakara,
Yes,
Mr. Surgeon.
Yeah.
Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
and me, Sarah, I guess it's 5 in favor, not opposed. And we will table the application, we look forward to see you again, Mr. Jose. All right, well,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hold on there.
we're good now.
Well done.
Awesome, great thinking there, I appreciate it very much. So next, item in the agenda is all business. And this is, to discuss the shoreline zone ordinance update of section 12C3, where we adding a 25 foot foundation setback, and section 15S13 revised to read 1 cubic yard of soil disturbance requires DEP certification. So this particular item have been in our board discussion for at least 3 meetings, I would say.
There's 2 items there.
That to do items. So they have been presented to the board at least 3 times. And I think most everybody received a write-up of the draft. So I'm not sure we are ready to vote, or we would like some discussion on it before voting.
I'm gonna discuss it, because
Okay,
it's just the way it is.
so I will open the
Where
floor
is
for
it
discussion.
outside?
This job site
Right.
is, these photos were taken on Pine Beach, 100 Pine Beach.
Pine Beach,
But this has happened at 90 Pine Beach, it's happened at 8 Walnut. 6 Walnut,
so do you have any pictures of trees dead? So there's been very little minor repercussions for someone stabilizing their house. Y'all, you got pictures of roots, big deal.
big deal, so where are they gonna grow? I don't have pictures of the roots that were removed.
I have
Oh, yeah,
pictures of the job site,
Uh,
you guys can all look at them. This is Pine Beach. I was out there fishing Sunday, went by, snapped a few pictures.
Oh, so this is the one we approved?
This is,
Yeah, we're.
Yeah.
and this is the pictures where roots are. So it's a deceiving amount of pictures.
Well, I don't know, I wouldn't call it deceiving, it's just a close-up view that you didn't capture.
No, I captured it a month after that.
Right, yeah.
You know, so there's no damage being done. And,
What,
And then the things that,
well,
the pictures are separate times.
Yeah, right, there's a time,
It's a different
This is like-
timeline.
this is during, that's after.
That's right.
well, that's still in progress, they just got the walls framed, that's all they have. They ain't gonna, you know, they're still built.
Hard to tell what they have for erosion control on this
Very
photo.
little, but
It's what they could use, they have 18 inches, they PCM. Foul up.
Yeah, it's visible in your picture, it's just not visible in the others.
Well, they can see it blends in.
Yeah.
But this has also happened, Alphonse, 11 Whitting, 2 feet from the water. So the idea, Fred, is, you know,
but there's
maybe
all
the
grass
trees aren't-
2 feet from the water down the health line, so that wasn't a big issue.
well, that's,
Once you stabilize a building, you're gonna have lot less. Interruption later down the road. You know, there's a lot of ways to stabilize, I mean, alright, so you make them move it back from 25 feet, 30 feet. Well, that's just more runoff, you're gonna get into the lake. It's you know, trees blow down every day, I mean, there was 8 in one storm right on the stream. And I haven't seen any trees killed yet with any pictures.
well, lightning strikes the tree, does it die within the first year? Or does it take 3 to 4 years?
Generally, yes, blows it apart.
No, I had them take 5 years to die in my yard. So, Fred, I understand every situation is different, you wanna argue this, but. Alphonse, yes, one of their properties has grass all the way to the
Yeah.
water. The property where they put a foundation 2 feet from the water didn't, it was a rock embankment. Very similar to this, where this was also about 2 feet at the closest point.
So is there
There's
more
no-
stable
there's no
foundation in there? Yes,
Now, you wanna say the rocks, the grounds, it's concrete, yeah, that's more stable, but the trees that remain, the roots that were damaged. They're not gonna grow into the concrete,
no,
they're no longer anchored there. They're less stable.
trees
My-
fall down around the lake all the time with a storm. Did you see the storm a few years ago where it uprooted a building and there was what, a dozen trees blown over in one storm? And you're gonna limit people to not upgrading and stabilizing their camps that they already bought, that they're paying unruly taxes on? The prices of them now are through the roof as well.
Well, we're charged with making improvements to the water quality.
It's not making a big difference to the water quality is my point.
Are you
How
visiting
is
these
it-
properties, David?
Have you got pictures of any brown water
Everywhere.
on these sites?
I haven't gone to these sites. I don't,
There's brown water everywhere, and most of it's caused by roads.
not necessarily.
I bet 90% of it
Go
is.
print off a dozen brown pictures of off Foster Point from construction sites. Running right down directly from the foundation to the water.
Within 25 feet?
No,
Alright, so you're not making an argument.
okay. Not here to argue, I'm trying to make improvements to our.
It's not an improvement to me.
You vote, I don't, so
Right,
you guys discuss it.
now if you wanna bring up the vote, a vote.
Right, any other discussion from the board on that?
I'm just kind of curious, the picture you gave us,
One please.
that, that building, who used to own that building, contractor? What building, we approved that application, right, that spring?
I think we did a site visit there.
Yeah, we approved that, this past,
You know what,
I think last fall.
I don't
You're all
remember
around
how much I was, maybe you guys did. But,
You down there.
the contractor is, Mr. Doug Frame with Golden Pond
Yeah,
Construction. And the thing with this particular camp, when they came here, they basically redoing what was there, all right?
right,
And we would probably ask them to go to the most practical extent, but they had no place to move back.
right.
So they needed to do it right there.
Right there, okay, yeah, that guy used to be a contractor and all that, and he got the permit to do what he did
Yep,
prior to 1989, before the law changed to it, it is now. You know, so he beat it by that, he got that permit that way, he did all the rough work then, so then he died or whatever, and he sold this woman's garden, I guess now, and they're redoing it. Right, this is the building. Right
they're
down,
really going this with the, we have
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
The
right,
big monstrosity that never got finished.
right, so, but it was like that prior to 1989. The building,
That's right,
that was the footprint,
yes,
and the height, all that stuff, he's within height, so now you got someone who's gonna finish the building. And keep it the way it was, same location, all that stuff. And so,
But they had a foundation, right?
no, there was a foundation
Was it a
there,
foundation or
No, they tore it down, they're doing a full foundation around it.
full foundation,
Wait,
8-foot
you
foundation,
mean a basement?
No,
Frost walls?
Yeah,
frost wall with a slab?
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
that-
not a full foundation, just so you know.
whatever.
yeah, okay,
So I see this differently than you do, Craig, because the applications I can recall, people aren't stabilizing existing camps, they're demolishing camps and building monstrosities, basically, because they got more money than
They
God.
can't,
Sure they can within the limits of the height
and the square footage.
and the
So-
square footage, right?
So they're not
So
building
so they're,
monstrosities, they're just rebuilding what they
okay,
have.
they're not building a camp, let's put it that way, they're building a house.
Yes, but it's
they
stabilized.
can do it.
It's no more stabilized than it was
Of
previous.
course it is, because every 5 years, 4 years, you're messing around trying to repost it and digging set beds and messing around with the earth underneath it.
Okay, so let me finish my other thought, if you don't mind, that is this, that. When you disturb root systems of mature trees, as is the case in this particular instance. You're not gonna kill that tree that growing season, you're gonna kill it the next growing season, or the growing season after that, so your pictures really don't. Negate that, okay? They may die, they may not die. I think, if we're gonna allow these structures to be built this close to the lake, then we should have a requirement that if any existing vegetation is killed in the process, that it be replaced with,
Well, that, absolutely.
and currently we don't.
Well, that's.
That's
I
a
feel,
standard, I think.
I feel that's useless because now you're taking. If you have a plant there that has an established root system, it's gonna be healthier than anything you can dig a hole and stick in the ground.
Well, and it's not a replacement, it's a poor substitute because you're putting in a 6-foot pine where there was a mature pine.
But also you can't determine whether a tree's gonna, it takes like you said, it takes a while for a tree to die, but it may not die.
May
So
not,
then you
but you're
turn-
limiting,
Just depends on how much.
you're limiting where the
root
roots can go.
damaged.
Right, so then you gotta determine, you know. Yeah, it's just tough because you don't know if it's gonna die or it's. not,
Well,
you
you've
know?
obviously roots have been cut and removed.
Yeah.
Now, are the roots ever gonna reestablish?
There, no, because it is the,
You
and
know-
the space,
They
the
move.
space where the,
They grow where they can.
well, where the root system was established have been removed, and that's where the foundation is. The roots are gone.
I just went through this. You go to, a woodlot where they've chopped down trees, there's trees growing everywhere. They grow right off, you chop the tree down, there's sprouts that come right out. And so I had to plant some trees over in Rome. And he's like, oh, you need a professional, and I was like, why do I need a professional? He's like, oh, just need a professional, and I said, no, I'm gonna plant the trees. I went over, scooped them up, I brought them over, I planted them, they all survived, I had extras. And I threw them on a tarp with some hay, and the things are still growing until we plant them, when I tear the garage down. Trees are pretty resilient. It's not rocket science. What they do, what does that tree that's halfway over the lake do for that lot? That you can't mitigate with proper plantings.
And I'm not sure where you're trying to get me with that argument, Greg, you're.
What's that tree that's hanging over the lake, other than dropping leaves in the lake? What's that tree do?
I have no expertise.
It holds that shoreline together with the roots supposedly,
Yeah,
but when it blows over, it rips up the shoreline. It happens often, very often.
I guess
So we-
that's one of the reasons why we ought to keep the roots in
Intact.
good shape, whatever.
Either that mitigate, if the camp's already there, that's gonna be a dangerous tree eventually anyways. So trees aren't worth people's lives. So there's ways to mitigate protection of that shoreline. If by chance one of those trees died, I like what he says, yeah, replant a tree. To be safe for another 100 years, 80 years.
Hans, at one of the prior two meetings or so, you mentioned what some of the other towns were doing in the watershed, that Smithfield had adopted a similar requirement and Rome was considering it. Do I have that correct?
Yeah.
So what
It's
Rome is doing, can
because-
you explain what Rome is doing?
No, I don't have their ordinance or their change,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of discussion. Because Rome has also formed a committee to look at their shoreline zone ordinance and for room for improvement. And two big things they're harping on is septic tanks or septic fields and buffers. And there is actually talk of proposing the idea of a 25-foot no-mow zone around.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
That's way overboard,
Exactly.
just like Rome is way overboard.
The
And,
thing about in Belgrade too.
you know,
I don't see that as replying, but. I see this
this
as
is a
being,
temporary thing. Once it's all stabilized, if a tree dies, whatever, replant it, but you can mitigate the shoreline without the tree. But. You know, if there was 50 trees coming down, well, maybe 25 trees, but if you're talking a tree or two, that happens on a storm. Every summer.
Hey, I'll jump in the discussion a little bit, but I'm buying your argument, all right? But I'm gonna give you another side into it. So how many foundations building we have in the shoreline that is 2 feet from the shoreline? In the lake, how often we see that in the lake?
2 feet,
2 feet, 2, 3 feet, 10 feet from the lake,
not very often.
no very often,
once a year since I've been here, the Alphons and this one.
okay? So,
two
so
feet,
most,
So this one's not 2 feet, this one was like 15.
it's just about 10 to 15.
Walk out there and you see it yourself.
Well,
Seriously.
look at the pictures.
No, I am, look, right here. Yeah, that's the berm right there, that's a rock, that's in the water, there's the berm, this is the edge.
That
This
house,
rock is being drilled,
that house is at least 15 feet from that shoreline.
alright, that corner is, go to the
It's
other.
good range, let's say 5 to 10, 5 to
See right
15.
there, that rock, the ECM. You go,
Right,
the application we approved showed 2 feet,
right,
it was on the application.
so that will be something to pound on, how often this happen? There's having the foundation there. Right, that close.
So once a year, so you have maybe 1 or 2 trees die a year compared to what storms.
Okay,
Let's talk
okay,
about
okay.
25 feet.
But
And
then,
how wide is with skid steer is to go around and dig the footings, and how much soil is disturbed to put the forms in. We're not just talking the width of the,
It's temporary,
but it's still, all right.
it's temporary.
We're
let me-
going over the same old ground
Yeah,
again and
let me
again.
finish.
I'd like to hear from some of the other board members
so
myself.
let me finish my thought here. So, once a year, say, twice a year. So then, and during the time that this foundation been done, you had no idea how many people came to me. Like, what do you do? How come you guys haven't let that foundation be built so close to the lake? So I know it's more probably it's a perception thing than anything really happening. But there are a lot of people in the lake looking at that and thinking, oh, the planning board is letting this thing happen and so on. Okay, that's just more of a perception thing. But the reality is that close to the water resource, there's a hole being digging of, I don't know how much, I don't know, the foundation is more than 5 feet because of the frost line or not. 5 to 10 feet, whatever it is down, and it's taking that root, is hampering to that root system. I had no.
4 feet down.
I have no way to tell you how that is gonna impact the rest of the forest or the rest of the tree lines there. I have more expertise with that, but that's happening. So those are concerns and then the community around that area, the perception that they have in that, we're letting these constructions happen and so close to it. Now it happens once a year, maybe once every 2 years. I'm not sure how meaningful will be. Now I'm questioning how meaningful will be to instating this 20-foot setback only for foundations. So I just wanna give you a little steering on that because I had a lot of people trying to push my buttons into it. I said, listen, you can go and look at the records. It was all approved. It was all under the ordinance. There's nothing we can do about it. It's what would the order, so people kind of been pushing back to the concept that, well, the ordinance is no good. That's what we hear from the community.
And
So
you're
I just gonna
minimizing,
put that out there.
minimizing it just by focusing on the ones from 2 feet. Look at how many we did within 25 feet. And you got 2 handfuls. In the past 2 years, since I've been here.
So show me the damage. You're
All right, so you
speculating,
want a photo show?
you're speculating.
I don't speculate, I go and I visit these sites, I'm gonna go to another one tomorrow. The next one, I'll be meeting with the contractor next Tuesday.
Yeah, and what's that?
28 Walnut. That one's 15 feet. On a steep slope,
Is that another one that we approved?
it is. It's all legit, I mean, we didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, no, I know that. It's just,
And that's a point that the present
Yeah.
ordinance don't give us a stick to bar that from happening. And that's what people seem to come calling and pushing about, well, how come you let this happen? How it goes, well, it's what we have in the ordinance.
My prediction is that this gets passed. These people that have been coming saying, no, we can't move back, it's not practical. They want a foundation. They're gonna move back, they'll make it practical. I think we'll still be approving the same applications. They're just not gonna be that close to the
And
wall.
just, I can see Greg's argument, I can see yours. And then I feel what I'm hearing from the public. And what I'm concerned is that this is gonna become we're prying within the ordinance a space where eventually we're gonna see this happening more and more. We're gonna have more foundations closer to the lake. We don't have it now. We might not have it at all, but it seems to me that we're leaving a crack in the ordinance to be pried on. And it's nice to have it, foundation with a nice deck, right? In the
I would want,
Huh?
I would want one. Who would?
Who wouldn't? You tell me, but this is the other thing, I
And the
don't,
place is much more stabilized, you're not messing around with it, you can litigate.
but then
runoff.
you're gonna have your septic tanks closer to the lake too.
Not necessarily, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You have to have a place there, so they already have a septic. So the septic's no argument, let's throw that away.
What I see, trend that I see happening in this lake is that people want their properties closer to the water.
They're not
Okay.
moving closer, they have their properties already there.
It has to go back, a new structure has to go back to the furthest point.
Obviously, and by
We're
shed.
seeing a lot,
That was grandfather.
I mean, with all due respect, I don't care what anyone thinks, because this isn't a political board, we're just going by the ordinances. But, I mean, the biggest problem with, our number one job, I believe, is to protect the lakes, right, the
Mhm.
quality of the water. And the number one problem is the house itself, building a house that close to the water. But if we're gonna allow that to happen, then the house should be able to be built properly. And I'd rather see a tree fall down than a house fall down in a bad storm. And the difference between having frost walls or foundations is, a huge difference than, like stick building a house and having no frost wall foundation. I think Craig's right, like if we put something in there that a tree falls down, then it has to be replaced. And there are, other options, to protect the water lakes with vegetation and otherwise, but if we're gonna let them build a house, they should build it properly, you know what I mean? I just, it's the house that's the problem, being that close to the water. If you wanna write an ordinance that they can't build houses and you can't rebuild a house or, change that, well, now you're talking about something, but if they're gonna build it, I think they should be able to build it properly. That's, I just don't see a huge difference between letting a house stay there with frost wall or foundation as opposed to one that doesn't.
is that during the time that this is happening, you have to dig down, so you're cutting to the earth and
Right.
you're letting it bleed so wide, and they have to be contained and whatnot. And during the time that happens, there's a lot of phone calling here about that.
Well, who
Yeah, but
cares?
who cares about the phone calls?
Who cares?
Well,
This isn't a political board. Nobody
Because
cares.
that's what I'm putting
who's the
forward.
government? Who's the government? The people.
Yeah,
So when the people are complaining, we have to listen, because we are
well, no,
government.
we have to go by the ordinances.
That's right, but the ordinances are there because things happen and people get together and then we agreed on a rule. And that's what the ordinance says. So that's what we're trying to do here. We were pushing and pinned through the summer because of this particular project. And a lot of the calls actually end up going to Hans, and Hans is trying to.
Look at the phones ringing off Woodland camps. There wasn't, it turns out there wasn't anything wrong. People were gonna complain regardless.
I understand why people.
What happened?
complain. I'm not saying that, I don't understand why they complain, I'm just saying, there was no special exception for this was all legit.
Oh, yeah, there's no argument about
Yeah.
that. What it is that we approved it according to the ordinance.
Mhm.
And people are complaining because it's so close to the end of the lake and so on and so forth. So we're trying to adhere to that and see if the ordinance needs a change, and we are on both ends of the spectrum here. Craig says we don't need any changes, you're agreeing with him. I'm trying to still process in my head which way to go, our CEO who's a soldier there is saying.
Yeah, no, I
We
respect
should,
that.
we should do something about it. So we're dialoguing. I mean, I'm not saying that Craig is wrong or Hans is wrong or anybody's right. I'm just trying to put it in perspective so we can make a good decision. That's all.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, okay, Hans is good, all right, we're thinking of Hans's position, and look at these pictures. The contractor should have put up the barriers between the building
He
and the
did,
water.
he had it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we-
just doesn't show up in those.
That's a different timeline. This is almost at the end
Oh,
of the construction.
Well, no, that's not even close to the end. They're just starting, and this is
No,
maybe
but,
4 weeks into it.
but the foundation part of it,
Yeah.
and there was no, when there was no wood in there, he had it all barred. Well, he had all what do you call that?
So,
The,
erosion control.
yeah, the,
Erosion mix.
the fence, the
yeah,
road.
he had all that in, he had all that. He did it by the T, he did it by the rule.
Oh, we did,
Oh, yeah,
done,
he did
he's
it.
doing it correctly, right?
But what Hans is contesting is that in the process of, placing a stabilization, construction, he dig in and he, disturbed a already, established root system of trees, for the trees. That's what Hans is contesting, okay? And with that, he will be killing all the trees around here that were already established there. That-
But will we? You know, you don't know that, like, what if the trees go
And
down?
I cannot disagree with that.
Well,
No.
Birch's don't.
It's a
have-
matter of risk.
They have
Yeah,
surface
just,
use.
yeah.
And the point is, my charge here is, we're supposed to be preserving quality of our lakes and the water. And by not having a safety like no construction buffer, and we just allow it to, basically, they picked up rocks and, rocks, anyway. Trying to make a better buffer against construction
How
along the
should
shore.
how should we go about talking about making it better? Keeping it a good buffer while construction is going on, can we focus on that rather than, okay. And this, you want us to change the ordinance and where buildings are already there and have been grandfathered in and all that stuff that have been existing, rather than, but moving it back?
They can still do maintenance to keep it where it is. They can move it back. If they wanna do a foundation, they're already charged with having to move it back to the furthest practical extent.
Right, so,
So
right,
we have things in chart.
There are some things, but we're trying to,
So,
Hans, when you see, say, somebody's putting a new foundation under a camp that's, say, 20 feet from the water. Do you see, well, put it this way. They're putting a foundation at 20 feet, how much disturbance do you typically see on the water side of that? Is not like, they're not digging down at 20 feet and putting the soil over here all the time. Aren't they actually disturbing at least, I mean, just in the excavation, several feet toward the water?
you're the expert. How much do you, when you're digging the foundation, how much wider do you go around your forms? About 2 feet,
usually 2 feet.
plus where they spill the soils.
I just wonder how often too, the
So
people
you're looking at 4 feet probably.
don't put the soil to the water, all the soil to the shore side of
Yeah.
the.
Well, they don't put it to the inside of the building, they put it to the outside,
Yeah,
so
that's-
whether it's in the.
Yeah, but you
Between
can
the lake
swing it
or-
around to the side.
Yeah,
It doesn't
although
have to-
the picture that Hans, provided us, of the. It's on the lake side. Albeit within the bark, the erosion mix, containment.
The only other point I think we've talked about the trees and things that Craig had mentioned that, yeah, we get a big storm, we lose 10 trees or whatever. But those are trees that we're gonna come down on our own based on a natural cause or whatever. Allowing the construction in that 25-foot area or to the 25-foot and excavating. it. It's a man-made cause, not a natural cause, and we can't control natural causes, but we can control man-made causes. I don't have a vote tonight anyway, but I figured that.
So man-made cause, you can see the tree dying. If it does die. And it becomes a hazard, you can take it down and replace it before it rips the shoreline and fall down. These trees that are blowing over with storms are just ripping the shoreline right off, rocks and roots and freaking shoreline, and it's happening often. And so why penalize people that you can mitigate everything? And still have just as good shoreline. As you do, especially with a white birch tree, I mean, how long is a white birch tree gonna last there before that rips up?
They got surface roots, they don't have sap roots, so you just ripped off half the surface roots of those trees, they probably won't last
Yeah.
3 years. So,
So they wouldn't last that long anyways.
Blueberry bushes, they're pretty good.
There's a ton of things to do.
Oh, yeah,
That eat up water and. You know, runoff even better than trees do.
oh, yeah. Yeah. I like blueberry bushes, I get them from my place, they're great.
I have no expertise on forest or different trees, so I cannot.
I think we should move this
Yeah,
along.
we should.
People have made up their minds.
Sure.
We're just going around in circles at this point.
So should we entertain a vote then on this?
Yes.
So that
Make
this
a
will be,
motion to approve.
okay, hold on a second, hold on a second. Should we vote separately, section 12 from section 15?
yeah. it's two
Oh, yeah,
different
definitely.
So
Yeah,
I
we
will
won't
entertain,
discuss the one.
should we, let's vote on section 12 first. All right, and then we'll move to section 15. So
The verbiage of that ordinance.
What page is that
I get section 12.
on? What page?
Where we-
now, the new one?
It's not in the ordinance. It's the proposed.
So this is the proposed change in the language for section 12.
What's it say now?
Yeah,
So that's about this 25-foot foundation setback.
Yes, yes, good, okay, 12 C,
Yeah.
C3, what does it say now? What page is it?
Right now, it starts here.
So what page is that on? I'm looking at the ordinance here. I wanna put page for me.
so what's the other one, worth?
The.
What's the other one?
underlying part, what's
Then, about the
Um,
DEP certification. Probably, certification was the other.
Well, you need that, regardless, right?
Not,
Was it-
homeowner.
Change to that requirement.
Oh, so.
Way it reads
So,
now,
so,
required
so
homeowner.
the new one is in blue,
The new stuff is in blue,
so what is it, how is it addressed in the existing ordinance right now?
it's not there.
It's not there at all,
That's
Underline is not there.
Yeah, that's all new language.
so what, how, I'm just kind of curious, the new. Current ordinance must talk about it somehow, and it was within the 25 feet, so.
No, our present ordinance,
What?
our present ordinance does not say anything about 25-foot setback. So,
The 25-foot setback. But you can do, and you can't do.
Not with regard specifically to
Not
the
with the
foundation
foundation,
No, it's a foundation.
or crosswalk.
or cross wall
Or a slab,
or slab.
okay, a slab is not, doesn't cause much of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it does not apply to post foundations.
And it would not apply to replacement.
Yeah. replacement.
so for instance, let's say this job that we're talking about. All right, they, instead of putting a foundation like they did, we could have forced them to do a slab.
No, that's not even correct.
That's not correct
They would have had to put it on post.
on post.
Right.
If,
That's
If this had been in place at
if
the
this
time.
had been in place, they wouldn't even have a slab or nothing. They put it on post, so this thing is moving all the time, so they're in there.
Well, you
messing
gotta
with
dig,
it
you gotta
all
dig
the
the
time.
post to it.
That's it, right, do it correctly.
And stabilizing, if these houses are already there. If they can't be moved back, stabilize the freaking thing. And deal with whatever happens and stabilize that, and then you're done.
So, in a structure like this, a slab will work, it have to be a foundation like this.
A frost wall work, they probably did a frost wall with a slab up the top, I'm assuming.
They had like cinder blocks before, cinder block foundation.
Alright, so they even had
replacing the
cinder
foundation,
blocks, so
It- it
they're-
wouldn't
this is a
apply.
replacement.
It wouldn't have applied to this one because they had an existing foundation. They're replacing what was existing.
Can I make one last comment?
Sure,
I would say that if there's concern that, or that the tree blow, if they do the work and the tree blows over, I can almost guarantee you there will never be a tree place to replant that. Code officers probably are not gonna know about, they're gonna remove the tree and they'll have what they had, what they would have had if it was cut down.
Exactly.
But also if a tree falls down, you're gonna want to have frost walls and foundation on your house, you know, especially if there's a lot of disturbance. You know,
I'm not sure, just say that again.
just as far as like structural integrity of the house, you know,
Yeah.
like when trees are falling down, you know, but you. I completely understand what you're saying, it's just, I don't know how much you're protecting the water. You know, I feel like we're taking away from the structure of a house, we're allowing them to build. But we're limiting them to the proper way of building the home. You know,
Well, I guess you voted to move on, so let's move on.
So we're gonna vote on this?
yes.
Alright, let's vote.
So, I will entertain a motion, to, move with this amendment that is in blue. So I need somebody to place the motion. Will be, I guess you guys can call it from,
12C3.
yeah, from the, all business, call the motion to rehab.
Just to move things along, I'll make that motion to, recommend to the select board, moving forward with, the amendment discussed today, to section 12C. 12C3, rather.
Alright. So do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Alright. So, we're gonna proceed to vote then, alright? So a yes vote means that we are accepting the amendment. Alright, so just to make that clear. Alright, Mr. Sakara,
No,
Mr. Surgeon,
No.
Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
No.
And Mr. Rangel vote yes, so it's 3 no's, 2 yeses, the motion fails. That's done. So we move on to section 15. Section 13. 1 cubic yard of soil disturbance requires DEP certification.
People have copies of this?
No, somebody was gonna write up some verbiage.
Well, I did, and I provided it multiple times already, but
maybe through email.
yeah.
I don't think I got copied on that email.
Can you make copies of it? That's my original.
That email was sent from whom again? Was it?
Mr. Seal,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, no, I was asked to send it to everybody directly, and I did.
This isn't gonna be an issue, because if they're allowed that, then. This needs to go through.
Okay, section 15. What page is that on the new ordinance?
So what do we have now? Grade 3 or something, or
I think, well, what is missing, what we have now, is that it doesn't require DEP certification, isn't it?
I'm sorry,
And what we, in section 15, what is different, what is now to what we're proposing is that we need to add that it needs DEP certification.
what the proposal does is it eliminates the requirement for those instances where contractor is not being used to do the excavation work. So that, for example, if it was the landowner doing landscaping or something of that order, putting in a rain garden, they would not have to bring in somebody that was DEP certified to oversee the soil erosion control.
I thought that was in
That's what's in ours
Yeah.
now, and this proposal would eliminate it.
right, because the state doesn't.
And be, that's right, it would make it consistent with state law.
But, yeah, okay, so. So if the property owner does it all the work, and the property owner can bring in, 20 yards. Hires a dump truck, brings in 20 yards, it goes up and rents some equipment and uses the wheelbarrow, takes a couple of days, years to get rid of the pile and spread it around. Does it himself, he can do it that way right now.
Well, for 20 yards, they'd have to get a permit because it's greater than 10 yards.
Right, it's up to 10, I think the state says up to 1 cubic, right?
Right,
Up to 1 cubic yard, you don't need it. DP certified.
so again, just like in other amendments, suggested amendments, the underlined is is the new language and this is directly from state law, so it all is based on the soil disturbances by an excavation contractor. Again, not the landowner.
So if we went along with this particular language. And the property owner wants to do it himself. Can he do it? Yes or no? That's all that says.
I think up to 10 yards, right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to get a separate permit.
Right. Say
That's
that
right.
again now?
For more than 10 yards, 10 or more yards of fill, he would have to get a permit for them to do that.
Okay,
But up to 10 yards, he wouldn't require a permit and he wouldn't need, under this, a proposed amendment would not need to have a DEP certified contractor overseeing the soil erosion control.
so let's say it's 9 yards. And the property owner wants to do it himself. Does he have to go to DEP at all, or what, get an approved, contractor or what? Yes or no?
He's doing it himself, he doesn't have to hire a contractor. So no, there's no going to DEP.
Alright, so he doesn't, okay, so, but soon as, so let's say it's 8 yards. And he doesn't wanna do it himself, and he's gonna hire some third-party contractor to do it for him. He has, at that point, does he have to go and get an approved person to do it?
Not for 8 yards, no. Doesn't have to be.
No need
No,
for
sir.
it have to be, the trigger is 10 cubic yards.
Right.
The trigger is 10 cubic yards,
Yeah,
10 or
Permit,
above.
yeah,
is
it's
into-
permit.
You're talking about something else though.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about hiring a contractor operating machinery within the shoreline zone. That has to be DEP certified,
Right.
No matter what,
no matter what, even if it's no
Contractor
yards.
does.
that's the rule right now, isn't it? Right now. So. This language is,
Giving the homeowner permission to work on their own property.
This is given. Anything more than 1 cubic yard. Has to be done by. Alright, so to put this in perspective, a dump truck, a normal dump truck is 12 yards. So,
cubic yards.
yeah, so what's our, we're trying to look for, what's our ordinance say now, 10?
What page is it?
10.
So it's just under a dump truck load right now,
Okay,
before you need a DEP contractor. And what I'm grasping is, we're trying to move it down to 1.
No, the one stays the same. That's what's in state law. So there's no change there. The change only is that this would allow landowner to do work on their property, planting gardens, bringing in small amounts of fill, less than 10 cubic yards. Without having to get a DEP certified excavation contractor to have them on site. To oversee it. You may recall we had an application that brought up this issue. Beginning of the summer, I guess it was, where I believe they were doing landscaping.
She was bringing in a shed and she wanted to level off the ground.
Yeah, and was gonna do the work themselves, minor amount of material, certainly less than 10 cubic yards. And so the question was, do we need to require them to have a DEP certified contractor on site at the time of the work? I think ultimately we might have decided that maybe there wasn't a cubic foot of soil involved, but this is intended to clarify the ordinance so that it's clear that in an instance like that where the landowner's doing the work themselves with shovels and rakes and by hand, generally speaking, that they don't need to have that DEP certified contractor. And that this requirement is exclusive to when an excavation contractor is being used, and excavation contractor would be a definition we would have to add to the ordinance. That also comes straight from state law.
So it bring us in compliance with the state.
Yeah, it would bring us right into line with the state. At the moment, we're more stringent than the state.
Right.
And at the moment, so if someone was digging within 25 feet, that's automatically need a DEP certified contractor for that anyways. Even if the homeowner was doing it themselves, they have to be required to get a DEP certification,
That's
correct?
the way it reads, yes.
Within 25 feet,
Yeah, so, we just did what we did with the 25
Right.
foot thing.
yeah,
But that's with something, so if someone was gonna do that, a homeowner wouldn't be able to just come in and dig themselves. Cause that would have to require a DEP certified contractor, correct?
not under this, no.
I thought anything.
No,
Every
it's all
shore,
based on, well,
every shoreline zoning, we always require a DEP certified contractor number.
right, on the presumption that it's gonna be more than 1 cubic yard of
Yes,
soil
correct.
disturbance, right,
So,
yes,
what
that's
I'm
right,
getting
yes,
at
you're correct,
If
you're
someone
correct,
was coming in to do a foundation or frost wall
you're exactly right,
within 25 feet or whatever, which we just,
yep, you're
Okay.
exactly right, because,
they would have to be a DEP certified.
right, because it would be more than 1 cubic yard of soil
Correct.
disturbance.
So what about someone wants to, property owner wants to make the nice, flatten out the ground, it's kind of bumpy and all that. And then, within, 25 feet of the building, the building back, 40 feet or whatever. But they want to, in that 25 feet, they want to make it smooth and all that, they can walk around. Well, breaking their ankle and they bring in dirt and, they bring in less than 10 cubic yards, every year. Can they do that?
One thing to keep in mind there is existing ground cover within 25 feet need to be maintained.
Say that again?
Existing ground cover within 25 feet of the water needs to be maintained.
Percentage, right?
What do you mean by
That
that?
the percentage of vegetation.
No, that's just, so. Find it,
What page you on?
I'm not there yet.
Okay,
And to Richard's point. At another location on Pine Beach 90, we allowed someone to move their house back and they put the foundation underneath it and it was very rocky. The natural earth doesn't exist anymore because all the spoils from digging the foundation just got spread out. And they did the best erosion control they could. They put seed and hay on it. So now they got a perfect lawn. So that whole maintaining the surface within 25 feet of the lake goes out the window as soon as you start an excavation.
Which portion of the ordinance is that?
keep going if I find it up. Bring it up, but,
So we're gonna vote on this.
Hey, Rick, what's section 15 maybe under? Soils.
to be under section O,
Oh,
Oh. Don't remember, yeah, on the. Right. No. There's no, I don't have no, they're all letters, rather alphabetical. That's a subsection. So
yeah,
what's,
subsection, no.
I'm looking at table one. So. that's
You're
page-
under
so you're page
section
45?
15, right,
Remember,
Rick?
section 15,
yeah,
subsection.
but I can't find.
Says in order to maintain the vegetation in the shoreline buffer, clearing and removal of vegetation for allowed activities. Included association, construction of related equipment and operation within or outside shoreline buffer must comply with the requirements of section 1502.
Yeah, which is except in areas as described in paragraph 1. Above, within a strip of land extending 100 feet horizontal distance inland from the normal high water line of the Great Pond or river flowing to Great Pond, or within a strip extending 75 feet horizontal distance from any other water body, tributary stream, or upland edge of wetland, a buffer strip of vegetation shall be preserved as follows. Continues. There shall be no cleared opening greater than 2,250 square feet. The forest canopy.
I think, Richard, you might be referencing R6,
Yeah,
15R6, hey,
Okay, you know,
page 55. Revegetation activities.
that's what you're talking about, revegetation, right?
I think so, yeah.
I know, not keeping the.
Yeah, I may be confusing part of what NERPA used to have too. I can't find it in the clearing standards, but the revegetation thing is, you know, I remember at one point there was a requirement, and it may not be there anymore, that the idea of going in and just throwing a bunch of soil on top of a low area to make it more flat wasn't permitted because you weren't maintaining existing ground cover. And I thought there was a provision said within 75 feet, you must maintain existing ground cover. But anyway, I'm not sure that
Well, yeah,
is,
it says revegetation activities must meet the following requirements for ground vegetation and ground cover. Says all ground vegetation and ground cover removed must be replaced with native vegetation, yeah.
Vegetation.
What page are you on, Nick?
55, A, 6A. In quantities and varieties sufficient to prevent erosion and provide effective stormwater. So I guess you can fill it and you replace it with vegetation.
And maybe I have the wrong end of the stick here, but to get to all those requirements under revegetation requirements, you first have to have a violation of section 15O, which is the section that Rich was in. And I don't see anything either that says you have to avoid the situation Hans just described, where the existing natural vegetation gets either destroyed or buried, in the example he gave by the fill from the foundation excavation. with natural vegetation, you know, you can put a lawn in. You know, as a form of, vegetation, but not natural vegetation. Because I didn't see it.
Okay. We have further discussion on section 15. Possible amendment. Can I entertain a motion to adhere that amendment to section 15?
I'll make a motion, to, recommend, this, amendment to section 15. S and to the definition section 17, to the select board.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, so we're gonna proceed to vote. All right. Mr. Sakara,
Yes.
Mr. Surgeon,
No,
Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander, and me, Sarah Longet, is 4 yes, 1 no, motion passed. All right. So with that, the agenda take us to elections.
Sir, before we move on to the elections.
Sure.
How are you intending, or did you want to proceed? I mean, obviously. The motion passed by an overwhelming majority, but it isn't unanimous. In the past, select board is. Usually well, like with the subdivision ordinance, when we didn't have a unanimous recommendation, they sent us back to the drawing table. You think we should send this to the select board and see what they say, or what? I mean, that would be my preference.
I think that's a critical, because they never have consensus. Most of the.
Yeah, I realize that, you know, there's a double standard there.
How about, is there, can we ask Peter, is there anything that you would like to add to that or take away that you would vote a yes on, or?
I just, listen, it works fine, we got a good shoreline zoning law, it's a very good shoreline zoning, we keep tweaking and making change, make it differ, change it. It's enforced, what we got enforced, to keep the way it is. We got a good law here.
So I guess my question to you, Peter, is, so your reason to vote no is, what is the reason to vote no?
I don't really understand what he's saying, I really don't understand. I don't,
This is, the state allows homeowners to work on their, if you wanna move a yard of soil on your property, the state allows that, we do not. This current ordinance that we have is stricter than the state. So we're bringing this ordinance in pretty much to match what the state does, which allows homeowners to work on their property.
Oh.
As of right now, they cannot, like, if they do anything over a yard, they have to get a DEP certified contract. We're making it so that homeowners can.
alright. Where does it say that? I'm looking at one.
Right here.
The curb is required DEP certification, one cubic.
Because it says, as of right now, it says when one or more cubic yards.
Okay.
Right, right now it says one or more cubic yards of soil disturbance.
So
It's part of a proposed activity.
but I don't want to draft it. Alright,
Right,
I haven't read this yet, okay. that when one more can be driven by the contractor, part of a photo
Well,
activity.
we added by an excavation contractor. Meaning if they have a contractor come in, then he has to be DEP certified. But that wasn't in there before, so it doesn't matter. If you moved more than 1 cubic yard, you have to get a DEP certified, which is stricter than what the state allows. This is giving the homeowners the right to move more than 1 yard, no more than 10 at their house. So you're giving people permission to, that's what this is doing.
This is all saying?
Yeah.
So why is it so long? Why can't you just say one sentence like the way you?
Well, because that's already the ordinance, we're just adding that. Which gives the owners more rights to
Okay.
work on their property.
Okay, so I wanna write down, okay, when the addition is underlined by in excess.
Right, meaning.
That's added, okay, what else is added to this existing language?
Just the other underlying part, the
What is
requirement
that?
does not apply.
This requirement,
Yeah,
this requirement is added, right? That's a paragraph, that's one sentence, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a partial, okay, by a contract, and I'm jumping down, this requirement does not apply to a person engaged in agriculture or timber harvesting, that's okay. For municipal, state, and federal employees engaged in farming. And if that's that. So that's a lot of BS going on there, so let's get down in the substance of what's going on here. So up about one or more cubic meters filled with by. Okay, so that's saying that they can do it.
now it's, because we added, when it's an excavation contractor. But if you take that out, if you take that word, if you take that little sentence out, the addition, then it's just any soil erosion more than a cubic yard, you have to have a DEP certified contractor. As of right now, that's how it stands. We're changing it so that only if you get a contractor in there, they have to be certified, which then allows homeowners to move, a yard of soil is not much soil.
That's right.
Right, but this is giving. More access to homeowners,
So long as they get the
more
contract.
rights,
And
unless he's getting a contractor, then he has to be served, like if he's gonna put if he's gonna have an
let's
estimate,
say he wants to go on a sheet, doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to spend the money for a contractor.
Right.
Can't afford or whatever, right? Can he do it? Under this
up to 10
particular.
yards. No, he can't move, a homeowner cannot move more than 1 cubic yard right now.
Right, so
This allows them to,
where does it say up to 10 yards?
well, that's part of a different.
Yeah, that's a different part of the
It's a
ordinance.
different part of, that's a trigger that,
Why can't this language reference that, except,
because that's already automatic, if you go over 10 yards, no matter what, you have to. We're just talking about under 10 yards, more than one right now.
still confused. Between 1 yard, 1 cubic yard and and say 9 yards. What happens there? How do you do that? How is the landowner gonna do that?
I mean, over time, slowly,
No, once a year. How's he gonna do it?
what do you mean?
You know,
Backbreaking work, that's how.
what?
We can't use any. I don't think many homeowners are gonna move 9 yards of soil on their own. This is not, but the problem is,
I've seen it happen.
as it stands now, it's up to a yard, or just a yard,
Right.
which that's not much, I mean.
No.
No, but as it stands now, they would have to get a DEP certified contractor, and just to move a yard, if you wanted to move a yard and a half of soil, you have to have a DEP contractor.
Which is a little more than a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, which isn't much more than this.
So,
The state allows the homeowner to do it, our ordinance does not. So we're trying to bring this in compliance with, not in compliance with the state, but have the same rules the state does, and allow homeowners to move more than 1 yard, 1 wheelbarrow. worth of
but
soil,
no more than 10.
But no more than 10,
Okay. I'd like to reconsider my vote.
okay.
How do we do that?
So I think we have to re-motion this again.
Yeah.
All right, so, just for clarification for future, votes and so on. In terms of the way the meetings are run and the protocols in the meeting, once we have a motion and we vote, and let's say we have to present this to select board, I will, as the chair, have the hands to decide on that. I will say that the vote will stay as it is. We send it to the select board. They see it's not unanimous. They can watch the whole video why it was not unanimous, and they can make their own decision on it. They can kick it back or whatever it is. I think that once we vote, trying to reconcile, to change a vote in the same session, it's almost undemocratic. We already decided.
Well, I mean, there was further clarification. That's
Yeah,
all. I mean, maybe we should vote on whether or not we should vote.
All right,
Yeah.
so, I also would plead with the board and with the members of the board that when we are coming to the meetings, that we come prepared and, try to have reprocess or process all this information before coming to the meeting. That in the light of the, length of the meetings and, the needs for people to go home, they have to go to work tomorrow. So that said, I will entertain a new motion again to reconsider the voting on section 15 of the shoreline ordinance.
I'll make a motion, to, reconsider our prior vote to, recommend to the select board, approval of amendments to section 15S and section, 17 of the shoreline zoning ordinance.
I'll second that.
Is it 17 or 13?
17, 15S and 17.
Yeah.
17 being the definition section.
Oh, it says 15S13 on the agenda.
In the agenda, yeah, but in the,
Okay.
draft, we have 17.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. We're gonna proceed to vote. All right, so yes vote means that we accept the amendment as it is to be added to the shoreline zone ordinance. All right, Mr. Sakara,
Yes.
Mr. Surgeon,
Yes,
Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
and Ms. Sarang is yes, so it's all in favor, not opposed. So the amendment passed. And this will be, put in the hands of the select board. Is that something that I have to write up to send to them? Send to Lorna? This amendment? The amendment that we approved for section 15 and 17? So
You make the request
I made a request to them directly, okay, so I will
to
send it
Lorna,
to Lorna. Yeah.
because she puts it on the agenda.
All right, so we'll do that, I'll do that tonight, yeah, I think she has to have that package done by tomorrow. So, that's done, so we move on to the next. I appreciate all your work and your patience through the old business and that the consideration of those amendments. For the shoreline zone ordinance. So the next item in the agenda is elections. And with the new, planning board, ordinance that we approved in March of 2023, every year, the leadership of the board have to be reestablished. We were supposed to do this in March, because last year we did it in March. But every meeting since March, we didn't have a full board. And I was very adamant that in order to do this, we should have a full board, a full quorum. So here we are, have a full quorum. So I'll actually, you are supposed to act as, taking the nominations
Okay,
for according to the, ordinance. Somebody else have,
so we open the floor. Are there any nominations for the chairman of planning board?
I make a motion to nominate Sarah as chair.
I second that.
Okay, any other nominations? Sarah, do you accept?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll now open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
we're
Do you
gonna,
have any nominations?
we gotta vote first on that. On the chair.
Well, nobody else wants to be it, so you're it, right? You're stuck.
How's that for Paul? in the
Well,
audience?
I can be nominated, but, people can vote 3-2 they don't want me as a chair, so then you have to get nominations. We have to vote.
We can vote.
It has to be unanimous.
It doesn't have to be unanimous.
So majority.
A majority, all right. So you get.
All right, we open the floor for a vote.
Yes.
All in favor, please raise your hand.
Sarah.
Sarah's not
Yeah,
in favor.
yeah, well, you have to call a roll vote because we're taping it, it's okay. So it's
5-0.
it's 5-0, you vote, okay.
Okay,
So then cause I'm a chair now, I can call for the vice chair.
okay.
So I opened, thank you for the vote, I appreciate it very much, I really have enjoyed, being part of the board and, helping with the, leadership of it. That's a real pleasure. So now, I open, the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Make a nomination. Can I make a nomination?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Craig Alexander, vice president.
You accept, correct?
No,
All right,
I'll make a nomination for George Sale as co-chair.
all right.
George does a wonderful job when you're not here. We appreciate it. As does Rich. Rich is filled out fantastic.
I'm an alternate, I
Yeah.
can't be the chair.
No, George does a great job when you're not here, so.
Right, you accept, George?
Yeah.
All right, so then I will open the floor for voting. So, Mr. Sakara.
Yes.
Mr. Surgeon,
Yes.
Mr. Seal,
Yeah, I suppose.
Mr. Alexander,
yes.
and Mr. Longus is 5 yes, not opposed, so it's unanimous.
Did somebody have to second that?
You know, we should have, but I didn't. So
I
you,
second that.
you, okay, great. Sounds good. Thank
As
you.
long as it wasn't.
I already chair one committee.
Once enough, huh?
Yeah. So, great, so I guess we're done with elections. Right. Excellent, so then next item in the agenda is the approval of, previous minutes of 7/18. And present here was, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Seal.
They weren't prepared, so we're gonna have to flip.
Oh,
that.
Oh,
I thought they were here someplace, I guess.
Minutes?
So the minutes, we're gonna table the minutes then, or
4/18.
7/18.
Yeah,
Alright.
we're looking at 7/18.
Oh.
So then next.
My minutes say 4/18.
Yeah,
Oh.
those were a reference to the
Oh.
case that we had tonight.
same date.
I thought it was just, miss.
So, next item on agenda is the CEO, update. No updates today?
No.
All right. So that's, covered discussion. Gravel pit renewal application list of upcoming tasks. So,
So Richard wanted to discuss gravel pit renewal application. Last time you were here.
The last one, I guess what it is was, and I think Craig was at that meeting too, there was discussion about whether a renewal application for a gravel pit needs to go through the full 38-page or whatever application, or if they do, should we work on something that would be less, not stringent is the word, but detailed, to deal with the renewal of existing gravel pit.
Okay, renewal would be.
Does that include grandfather grant pits, or are they grandfather?
And, well, there was another issue as to whether or not
They even have to do it, because The ordinance came after the existence of the pits.
Correct,
Right.
correct, and that's what, I've spoken to a few of them. And that's what they're saying, and they're inspected by, or they're controlled by the DEP, some are inspected, some are. But they're under 5 acres, and they're all grandfathered in. And that's why,
Do we have the power to vote on whether or not they are grandfathered in or don't have to?
So I think there's some confusion as to when the ordinance applies to gravel pits. And this is, has been in the ordinance since 2001, because it was one of the primary drivers of this ordinance even existing. Because of a lot of public outroar out in North Belgrade in particular. When what the pipe was, what was it? Yeah, yeah, I think so, when they did a major expansion of their gravel pit. So for the ordinance to even apply, they have to do an expansion of their pit. And, the, friggin' ordinance, no wonder why I can't find it. So if you go to,
Commercial, right?
the commercial development, right, yeah, it helps to get in the right ordinance, like me. The applicability section, which is on page 5. It, starts off with an introductory is for new construction or development or the proposed expansion of existing non-residential uses. And in G, expansion of existing mineral extraction operations. These operations which result in excavation, movement, or processing or more than 200 cubic yards of material within a 2-year period of time, or which will result in non-vegetated areas in excess of 20,000 square feet in footprint area. Permits for mineral extraction are separate from commercial development. Permits covered in Article 7, Section 1. So this goes to your question, Rich. I believe Article 7, Section 1. Oh, okay, yeah, so that brings us to the back of the ordinance on page 42, which applies both to an entirely new mineral extraction or sand and gravel pit or quarry or whatever it might happen to be, or somebody's gonna try to open a nickel mine like in Warren and Union that's going on right now. They have to go through the entire ordinance. For the expansion of an existing gravel pit, we treat it as an amendment. So it only, if you go to, section, paragraph A on 42, special permit requirements.
Mine's not that. What section is it? My ordinance.
Page 42.
Oh, no,
Oh, yours don't have page numbers?
no,
Oh, Article 7.
Section 1.
What the hell is it? Page numbers.
oh, yeah. Come on.
So. It would be, the Article 7 is the one that has the solar in it, it has the, it's very close to the back of the ordinance.
What ordinance is it? In
Commercial,
commercial development?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. You find it there?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Everybody else find it?
What page?
42. I know what happened. The original that we were given after this, the solar development amendments were done, didn't have page numbers. We asked for page numbers and it looks like not everybody got them.
I got it. That's section 1, article 7, section 1.
Yeah, and if you look specifically, just to answer Rich's question, can't find it.
At the top.
My page 42 talks about women.
Your. Sections, special.
So you,
So it's page 39, yours, I think, Mine is page 39.
I know. Why, I thank you. Mine is calculus.
I have page numbers, but apparently they're different page numbers.
Penny's
Yeah.
got one, but she's on 39.
Yeah, the electronic that I have is 39.
Okay.
Well, that would number it differently. The page you're adopting, not the page you're adopting.
What page,
42.
page 39?
So can we decide what version we're gonna use?
It's okay, it's the same thing, though.
I know it's the same thing, but in the future, it'd be
Yeah.
nice if, you know, somebody said, well, put page 39 and everybody had
42.
the same thing.
Just tell me
42.
what section and,
It's section 1,
okay,
paragraph A,
okay, got it,
special permit requirements.
yes.
Because of the constantly expanding nature of mineral extraction, expire every 5 years from the date of planning board prior approval. 5-year renewals will be reviewed using the procedures of Article 4, Section 9 of this ordinance. Section 4, Article 9. And, you know, I don't really like the use of the term. Well, that's neither here nor there, it doesn't matter what I like. And so section. Article 4, section 9, that's, the administrative, I think, article. Yeah, so in my version, it's 7, so yours is probably page 5. Is that right, Penny?
Article,
4?
Section 7, section 9, sorry.
I think.
Yeah, and so if you go to section 9 in that article,
Article 4,
correct,
Yeah, it's page
Section-
page 18, or yours will be.
16. Yeah, all right.
Mm-hmm.
15 maybe?
I have it, mine was 16. page
16. So as I said earlier, it's handled as a revision. And so the short answer is not all the requirements of the ordinance, not the full application is required. And all that's really required is the information that's required back in Article 7. A site plan, you know, what, some drawings, the area to be expanded, any areas to be closed, that kind of thing. Which is how it was handled in, back in 2015, which was the first time we did this.
So basically every pet. Out there that we have is all grandfathered, and they don't have to. Cause they were grandfathered before this came out. And that's their argument.
Where Greg is coming from, I was just gonna kind of bring this up. The real question that was generated at that meeting was the specific language of special permit requirements. And the question is, what if, because of the constantly expanding nature of mineral extraction, all commercial development permits for this use will expire in 5 years. If the gravel pit was in existence at the time of the ordinance coming and when we regulated gravel pits, they didn't have a permit then. And it says that if you need to have your permit renewed after 5 years.
Can't
Well, they don't
review a
have
permit
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, how can you review a permit that's not there?
Right, and that makes sense. I think though you have to start at the beginning, and that is, does the ordinance the first question is, does the ordinance apply? And the ordinance only applies if they do an expansion. It isn't about what they mined before 2001. That is indeed grandfathered. It's for the expansion of that, since 2001, if you will, or what they're planning to, mine in the next 5 years. It's just like what we approved for Hammond lumber. I mean, that basic facility is grandfathered. But they got an approval for an expansion of that facility since the ordinance went into, and they've gotten multiple approvals. So it's an expansion just like any other expansion. And not everybody was at the last meeting, and I'll just say what I said then, and that is, I take some issue with, how expansion is defined. I think it's a little too severe or stringent. Because, I don't know what their numbers are, but, I'd be interested to know what other towns require, but towns like Whitefield and other towns like that, but 200 cubic yards is nothing. So maybe that might be worth looking at, but I think the logic of the ordinance is, does the ordinance apply? Yes or no, and that's based on whether it triggers the expansion. If the ordinance applies, only then does the special permit requirements come into play. So it isn't that we're asking people to get approval for what was grandfathered, we're asking them to get approval for their expansions, if they haven't. I mean, if some pit is gonna be dormant, because they don't have any contract with DOT or whatever the case might be, they don't have to get a permit.
No.
I agree.
So that one that we did for, Hillcon,
Like,
that was that an extension?
I don't know, I didn't see the application because I wasn't at that meeting.
It wasn't.
But, so I can't tell you what they did.
But we didn't need to.
They just do it. This is the second time I've seen them in here doing it.
Yeah,
They just automatically do it. They're not even working that pit, so that pit's been dormant.
I think,
And, the pit's been dormant quite some time.
I mean, Pike is, they're the only non-resident owner of a pit in Belgrade probably. But I mean, they're sort of a different kettle of fish, okay, because what they're probably, I mean, I used to know, unfortunately he died of cancer, but I used to know their engineer who came in here the first couple of times to get the permit, and he was combination engineer / compliance officer, and that's what he did, and the reason they do it is because they don't know what they're gonna get for a contract 2 years from now. And so it's easier for them just to get the permit out of the way, and that way, if they get a contract with DOT or some large construction project, they can just move. And not fiddle around with getting the permit at that time.
It was unbelievable, what he brought to the
Yeah.
planning board, I mean,
And
that's a lot of work. and
yeah,
expense.
and that's not what this ordinance envisions. I mean, like I said, they just have more resources,
Yeah.
they have professional resources available in-house.
But still, if they don't need. to
Yeah,
do it.
I mean, if you saw some of the applications that were submitted back in 2015, Pike, of course, did one, and that was sort of at one end of the spectrum, and others, you just relied on like Google Earth printouts and that were marked up, and that kind of thing. And so, and then the paperwork that was necessary to meet, B, C, and et cetera, in that Article 7. Some people found it easier just to fill out the application, the parts that were applicable, because if you recall the application, the stuff for Article 7 is at the end.
Yep.
But
Okay,
Mike-
so it's not as aggressive as we thought, at least at the night of the planning board meeting.
well, it's no different than any other expansion of a previously existing land use. And like I said, I think it would be worth discussing at some point. Or look in investigating further whether those. My personal view is that maybe the standards for what triggers the ordinances are too small.
Yeah, that's like 20 dump trucks.
Yeah, or less. And so, that could be one residential job and,
And it all depends on how I'm still trying to learn that too, and I've tried talking to 2 or 3 different people. And they're permitted for 5 acres, and they're not over the 5 acres, and then, there's no reason for them to come in and do this. Cause their grandfather did, and all these pits there hasn't been any new pits opened.
right. No, everything's been just expansions. I mean, last time, 2015 was the last time that most of the pits were licensed because of proposed expansions. There was at least a half a dozen that did so in addition to Pike. Not all, some did.
So what I hear is that for continued operation or expansion of a pit, we don't wanna require a full application. Or we're considering
If they
that.
want to put one through, I guess it's okay, but if not.
Yeah,
deal
and
with it.
it isn't so much about what we want, it's what the ordinance requires.
Right.
The whole application isn't required.
Sarah, before.
If I heard you correctly, you gotta get to the end of the application before you find out that.
Yeah, I mean, they probably would need a little guidance from you. I mean, last time, in 2015, Gary spent a lot of time with these folks.
Well. I'm not that familiar with it. They want guidance from me, I say go through the application, so when they get to the end, they find out they did all this work. That they only had to do a little bit in the front, maybe like Richard suggests, there should be a separate application.
That's not a bad idea.
Or we need to work on that then.
And add it to our list of homework assignments that we haven't done.
All right, so Mr. Baker wanna say something?
I was gonna say, not related to this, so whatever are we done with the?
The only other thing is a list of upcoming tasks, and I do have a list. Make sure that, parents get it tomorrow morning. So that we dish it out in the next agendas. So, we don't only have to reset this application. For renewals of, roll pits, we have other things, we have a significant list of different things that we have to upgrade. Applications and different things. So I do have that list, I just don't have.
Well, and just to be clear, I don't see this as Hans's job,
It's my job, so I'm.
well, or our job. I mean, we originally, ours as a board,
Yeah,
I mean, for those of you that maybe don't know, Sarah and I had suggested that some of this work be taken up by KV Cog on our behalf, paid by a grant that the town applied for. The town did not get the grant. This was in response to inquiry from Lorna asking for ideas for this grant. And we put forward those among other, something else too, I think, can't remember what the other item was, but anyway, yeah, and the things on the list, I can't remember them all from the top of my head, but it's like, we've never done it. An application, a new revised the application form for, since the subdivision ordinance was revised. So if somebody came in with a new subdivision or even an amendment, we'll be bumbling around trying to shoehorn it into the old application, which is not fair to them. We've never done, made any changes or additions to the commercial development review ordinance application and all that goes with it, including the checklist for solar farms, which that amendment and you know, what goes hand in hand with that, of course, is revisions to the findings of fact and law for each one of those and the checklists and et cetera. So it's the, you know, it's the administrative side of our job.
So, that said, it seems that it has been kind of a kickback to us, so to speak.
Yeah, and you know, obviously we can't do it all at once.
Mm.
So it seems to me one of the first orders of business would be to prioritize that list.
Mhm.
What we would need is the changes to the ordinance and the finding of fact or whatever it is as it exists and be able to mark it up to meet it.
Yeah, you're just gonna take some time for that. So,
So does that, doing those changes? Does that have to go to the voters? Is that changes that we can do because the ordinance has already been voted in?
That's something that we can do as a board.
Because it's for internal anyway, right?
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah.
turn out use, yeah. So, any other comments from the board?
I
Ms.
have
Baker?
one thing, back half an hour ago or whatever, I think it was Nick raised the issue of people filling in, leveling things out, and I said something, well, you can't do that within 25 feet of the water. The real answer is, I found it on page 45 of the shoreline zoning ordinance. The answer is if you have a lawn and you've got low spots in your lawn, you can do that. If you've got a forested buffer strip between the water and the 75-foot setback or the 100-foot setback, depending whether you're on a great pond or a stream or a river, is regulated. If you're at section O on page 45, paragraph 2B, it says selective cutting of trees within the buffer strip is permitted, provided that a well-distributed stand of trees and other natural vegetation is maintained. And the key here is other natural vegetation. If you go over to the next page, bottom paragraph, it says for the purposes of section 1502B, which is what we're just read, other natural vegetation is defined as retaining existing vegetation under 3 feet in height and other ground cover. And ground cover is defined as small plants, fallen leaves, needles and twigs, and partially decayed organic matter of the forest floor. So in that buffer strip, forested buffer strip, you can't go in and start filling in low depressions and covering up the natural vegetation or pine needles, leaves and other things that has to be maintained as a natural buffer, except for the 6 foot pathway that's allowed to the water, so. In my comment, you can't do anything within 25 feet, that wasn't correct, it's within 75 or 100 feet. Unless it's already existing lawn, you know, you don't have a buffer there, you can go in and level that area off. And replant it with more grass or whatever, but where George is looking kind of funny there.
That's just the way I look.
That's not enforceable.
Pardon me?
That's just not enforceable.
It may not be very enforceable, but it's the rule.
But it's a rule that,
So that,
you look
John
at-
covered, fine, sorry.
I mean. This case we talked about tonight, the one right down the street from it, by the time you get your excavators in there to do your, dig out your footings. Well, there's rocks in the way that need to be moved aside.
Well,
They don't put those back, and all this stuff you're talking about, it gets crushed and leveled by the excavator, and all the soil's being disrupted when it's done.
well, if you're building something new, you're back 100 feet or 75 feet anyway, unless you've got a buffer. And it's known, or it has to be, you have to allow people to do a certain amount of clearing around that structure and get your equipment in. I'm talking about an existing vegetative buffer that somebody's just going in and start filling in for the purposes of leveling it off. You can't do that.
Even if you were to plant vegetation. In that, like,
Yeah,
level it off and then plant vegetation there.
You can't do it.
Do that.
You maintain-
So that's between the 25 feet,
It says
Setback.
75 here, 75.
It's 75 or 100, depending on whether you're on a grapevine. If you build a house, a new house, say, and you build it back 100 feet, you've got 100 foot of vegetative buffer. You're allowed to create a 6 foot meandering path, and you can bring in some fill or whatever to create a level path down to the water that's meandering.
Mhm.
Outside that 6 foot area, you need to maintain the vegetation and
As it
ground
is.
cover the way it is.
so it's from the 100 foot setback forward.
Yeah.
But defining maintaining, if you were to replant vegetation there, wouldn't you technically still be maintaining it?
It's not how we interpret it.
Okay.
Well, you can make it lawn easily, just go put a foundation under your house that's 30 feet away from the water. Cause that's what's happened, John Slosher, 10 feet.
Well, that's why I was
Beautiful lawn.
looking funny, because I was trying to apply what this says to the scenarios or the
You're
situations.
that close to the lake, you don't have that wooded buffer that he's talking about.
Right, and also
Well, it's there.
This starts with-
Destroy it.
you proposing some selective cutting, and in those cases, they didn't propose any cutting.
Right.
They were just proposing the excavation work. So this wouldn't, my sense is this wouldn't apply to those situations.
Pine, so you couldn't rate.
Or- Am I reading it wrong, or?
Yeah.
That's for
That's-
new,
You're
new
right.
buildings, is it?
You're not supposed to,
You can't rate.
no, you're not supposed to.
Okay.
You can do it, but you're not supposed to.
Can you repeat that quickly?
So like this, I was trying to apply this section or subsection to the case that Hans had spoken of earlier, where as a result of the fill generated by the excavation work for the foundation was used, leveled off and turned into lawn. So
Mhm.
obviously the natural vegetation that was underneath that was not, and along with the topography, was destroyed. But it's revegetated with a lawn, but it's not natural vegetation. And,
Are you talking about the area between the foundation and the water?
yes,
All around.
10 foot area?
yeah, or whatever it might happen to be. I mean, but in that case, they did not propose, nor do I believe they undertook any cutting
Mhm,
of trees.
mhm.
And this seems to be premised on
Cutting trees.
cutting trees.
Mhm.
Unless maybe there's something else in the ordinance that I'm not aware of, but that's what,
Yeah.
I don't know, if that's any clearer, Rich, but,
I'll have to study that. and bring-
Yeah,
bring that to a
could-
report.
But
yeah, cause, you know, the situation that Hans described, you know, others probably would disagree with me, but it's somewhat bothersome to me that, okay, fine, they're gonna get, you know, as we decided earlier, the majority decided earlier, you know, they're gonna be able to put their foundation, a solid concrete foundation underneath their structure, whether it's a, upgrade of an existing structure or whether they're, doing something different. And, but the fill that's generated by that, or you know, is it to just use that to alter the landscape that dramatically from the natural state to a lawn, you know, a suburban lawn, doesn't seem right.
There's
Nor does it seem like it's protective of the
There's
lawn.
nothing in the ordinance that says like rules of getting rid of the fill.
I don't think so, not that I can think of.
Well, we can do that in a condition if you wanted to return it to the natural
Yeah,
state.
you should have to get rid of the building.
So it's nothing saying that they have to leave that fill there. They can return it to the natural state, whether it's 10 feet or how far to the, you know. We can condition that, like we condition a lot of other things.
No, you can't, because the Slosher site was big boulders. They had to be, you couldn't drive an excavator over.
Well, they couldn't be underneath the house, or if they were, they.
I'm talking about around the house, to get around to dig the point. I mean, they dig out in the center, but they still need to move their equipment around the whole structure. So you got, what's a big excavator, 12 feet wide, 14 feet wide? That, at least that, around the whole house is now long.
Well, you
It
could
was
stay,
tore up.
you could stay north of the water and start digging in that corner and then just work your way back, you
Yeah.
know? You wouldn't have to necessarily drive all around.
Right,
But that's not what happens.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go look at it. That's it.
I didn't mean to get us off on a tangent here, it's,
But it's good consideration though. One last thing I wanna say about that, Pine Road, place. There's 2 jobs that we approved next to each other there. And there's a resident that is sandwiched between those 2 jobs. And this person came here this summer and left early. She was disgusted, because both sides of her property, there were construction sites done right up to the end of the lake. And, so that's just for, so you guys have it in your backdrop when we're making decisions for the, public care. So I don't know if moving forward, when all these projects come about, if we should have a map on what is happening during the summer and what is happening. I'm not sure if.
She's not the only one that complained. All the neighbors complained.
Well, I got a heated phone call on that one, so, particularly. So, I know that you got the rest of them.
And it's not about being nice to this neighborhood, because there's a lot going on right now. These rules apply equally to everybody,
I know,
every neighborhood at all times.
but so should we have in the ordinance a predicament that if more in certain amount of area, more than 2 projects are happening, or we have to allow certain amount of projects to happen at the same time? I'm not sure. I just talking out loud, that's all.
yeah, but now you're infringing on people's rights. So
That's right too. I understand
I
that.
know they are complaining, but why are you taking away from this person's right?
I
Because
understand.
they're complainers.
I understand, but imagine yourself, being in a sandwich between 2 persons at the same time, ruining your summer. When you're entitled to enjoy your property.
Yeah, so enjoy your property, but they're entitled to do what they want. So next thing you're gonna say, well, they're gonna choose colors of their paint, they're putting on the siding. We had someone in here 2 years ago suggesting that, if you remember correctly, and he was saying that we should have notified him that what they were doing And why don't we all get the same colors? If you remember that correctly, that was just 2 years ago. Another,
Thank you so much for reminding us.
I remember a letter coming in, somebody complaining the type of business that was coming to town. As if we can say no to this business and yes to that business. People are gonna complain,
my God, and people have rights.
but we're
If they own the property, they pay taxes on it until someone else, and that's my comeback that I told that guy. Is until you stop paying everybody's taxes,
Be quiet,
why do you have a choice on what they do?
right?
Oh, you always have a choice to sell your house if you don't want the construction going on. That's your right.
That's your choice.
All right. So with that said. Do I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, who seconded it?
I'll second that.
All right, Mrs. Sakara,
Yes.
Mr. Sergeant,
Yes.
Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
And Mr. Long is yes, so we have 5 in favor and none opposed, and we adjourn.